is Tuesday. It's the 3rd of June. You're watching Arirang, Korea's only global network. Live from Seoul, I'm Moon Gon-young. Korea's most wanted man may be looking for a way out of this country. The team in charge of tracking down Yoo Byung-un, the fugitive owner of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry, says he recently asked an undisclosed country for political asylum. Now, the nation reportedly denied that request, deeming Yoo to be nothing more than a criminal. Prosecutors have called on Korea's foreign ministry to advise foreign missions here not to accept the 73-year-old. An arrest warrant is out for Yoo, who is wanted on charges of embezzlement and tax evasion. Authorities have offered a $500,000 reward for information that leads to his capture. Meanwhile, today is the final day of campaigning for candidates running in the local elections. Less than 14 hours from now, Koreans will begin to head to some 13,000 polling stations across the country to cast their ballots. The results from tomorrow's local elections are especially important as they will be a litmus test for the Park Geun-hye administration in the wake of last month's deadly ferry disaster. Our Park Ji-won reports.
The country's rival political parties are engaged in one final push to win the hearts of undecided voters on this Tuesday, the last day of the 13-day campaigning period. These elections are increasingly being seen as a vote of confidence for the Park Geun-hye administration, with last month's tragic ferry disaster hitting the incumbent government hard. The ruling Saenuri Party is calling on the public to give them one more chance to revamp and reform the government in the wake of the disaster.
I earnestly plead with voters to give us strength and another chance so President Park could make a new Korea. Our party, by helping the president, will build a new Korea.
The main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, is calling on voters to hold the ruling party responsible for the government's poor handling of the tragedy.
The Saenuri Party is already asking us to forget about the Sewol-ho ferry. They ask voters to forget about it and wipe the tears of the president by helping her. We'll never forget the Sewol-ho ferry disaster.
Over 13,000 polling stations around the nation will open at 6 a.m. on Wednesday and close at 6 p.m. More than 11% of eligible voters already cast their ballots in early voting held late last week. Experts say while the young and old vote will be split down their traditional party lines, with younger people supporting the opposition party and the older generation voting for the conservative ruling party, it's voters in their 40s who hold the key to deciding the victor in this year's local elections. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The top commander for U.S. forces in Korea has asked Washington to deploy an advanced American missile defense system here in Korea. Now, he was speaking at a lecture in Seoul today where General Curtis Scaparrotti said that he recommended that Pentagon sends the system known as the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD, to South Korea. Earlier media reports said that Washington had conducted a site survey for possible deployment locations for its THAAD system, which is designed to intercept a diverse range of missiles. Scaparrotti said that the recommendation is in the initial stages of consideration and that a final decision will come after close discussions between the two allies. Meanwhile, the chatter over a resumption of the six-party talks on North Korea's nuclear program has picked up in recent weeks. But the chief nuclear envoys of South Korea and the U.S. during their talks in Washington agreed that dialogue with Pyongyang will only begin once the regime shows it's ready to freeze its nuclear program. Our correspondent Hwang Sang-hee reports.
South Korea and the United States agreed North Korea must not advance its nuclear capability if it seeks dialogue with them. Following 4 hours of talks in Washington on Monday local time, South Korea's chief nuclear envoy Hwang Jung-guk and his U.S. counterpart Glenn Davies set a condition for the resumption of six-nation talks aimed at denuclearizing North Korea.
On resuming denuclearization talks, we agreed it must be a meaningful dialogue that ensures actual progress and prevents further development of North Korea's nuclear capacity.
The meeting comes a week after Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to Seoul, where he called for a swift resumption of the six-party talks. The multilateral denuclearization dialogue involving the two Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia, has been stalled since December 2008. Hwang said Seoul and Washington agreed North Korea's sincerity about denuclearization is the key precondition to resuming the six-party talks, and they will seek close consultation with Beijing on the issue. South Korea and the United States also called on Japan to maintain transparency in its discussions with North Korea. Pyongyang agreed last week to allow a reinvestigation into the fate of Japanese citizens abducted by the North in the 1970s and 80s, and Tokyo promised to lift some of its sanctions on the North. Experts say dialogue between North Korea and Japan is key for solving the abduction issue, but stress Tokyo must not stray away from its trilateral cooperation with Seoul and Washington in dealing with Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
A former U.S. official says sanctions slapped on North Korea for its nuclear and missile activities don't really have the desired effect. Speaking at the Center for Strategic and International Studies on Monday local time, former U.S. National Security Advisor Tom Donilon said North Korea's isolated financial system means U.S. dollar sanctions don't do that much to damage the reclusive regime. Now, he contrasted the situation in North Korea to Iran, which has a financial system that is closely interconnected internationally and also has a huge petroleum trade system. Korea's largest conglomerate is taking another step toward restructuring, and this one is being seen as a move to speed up the succession of ownership from the group chairman to his children. Samsung Everland operates an amusement park and runs a fashion business and serves as the de facto holding company of Samsung Group, and it says it will seek an initial public offering in the first quarter of 2015. Arirang News Hwang Ji-hye has more.
Samsung Everland will go public by next March. The de facto holding company of Korea's biggest conglomerate, Samsung, said Tuesday that it plans an initial public offering as part of efforts to become a global fashion and service company. The move, however, is widely seen by analysts as the next step in the conglomerate's succession plan as it relates to Samsung Electronics chairman Lee Gun-hee's 3 children. Currently, his son Tae-yong holds the largest 25% stake in Samsung Everland, while his 2 daughters, Boo-jin and Seo-hyun, each hold around an 8.5% stake. Chairman Lee holds a mere 3.7%. Analysts say the listing of Samsung Everland will give the chairman's children means to generate cash by selling shares in the company. The cash could be used to help pay inheritance taxes and buy shares in companies they want to control.
Samsung Group would need a lot of transaction costs in order to pay necessary taxes, in order to swap necessary stakes from one entity to the other.
Questions linger about Samsung's future as the group's de facto chairman Lee Gun-hee was hospitalized last month after suffering a heart attack. Many predict that the electronics and financial sector will be handed over to Lee's only son Tae-yong, the chemical and hotel sectors to first daughter Boo-jin, and the fashion and media sectors to second daughter Seo-hyun. Samsung Everland is expected to lay out a detailed schedule and procedures for the listing later this month. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, LG Electronics and 3 of its affiliates have taken 12 airline companies to court over alleged price fixing. Legal analysts say the court's decision could open the door for similar lawsuits down the line. Our Shin Se-min explains.
LG Group companies are seeking hundreds of thousands of dollars in compensation from a dozen domestic and foreign airline companies. The Fair Trade Commission said Tuesday that LG Electronics, LG Chem, and 2 of their affiliates filed a lawsuit against the airline companies late last year, and the case is currently being heard by the Seoul Central District Court. The 12 airline operators, including Korean Air, Asiana Airlines, Air France, and Cathay Pacific, are accused of colluding to maintain unfairly high freight transportation prices by fixing surcharges levied to make up for volatile fuel costs. The LG companies claim that the move hurt their competitiveness in export markets. The lawsuit seeks over $390,000 in financial damages, but experts say the amount of compensation may rise much higher depending on the amount of losses. If the airline companies are found guilty, many other exporters could bring about similar suits. Korea's Supreme Court recently ruled that penalties were rightly imposed on airline companies that collude to fix airfares. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Korea's exports, considered the nation's growth engine, are being threatened by signs of an economic slowdown in China. Of course, China is Korea's biggest export market. It's caused Korea's exporters to try to adapt and policymakers to chip in where they can help. Kim Byungji reports.
Korean exports to China plunged 9.4% in May on year due to an economic slowdown in the world's second largest economy. It's setting off alarm bells for the Korean economy, whose growth is heavily export reliant. Exports to China make up the greatest share at a quarter of Korea's total exports. What's particularly worrying is that a large chunk of Korean exports to China are in the form of raw materials or parts that are manufactured or reprocessed in China for re-exports to other countries. China increasingly shifting focus to domestic consumption from exports for its growth. The proportion of intermediate trade based on reprocessing dropped to 25% last year from 39% 6 years earlier. Lee Geun-tae of LG Economic Research Institute told the Chosunilbo Daily that around 2/3 of Korean exports last month were for intermediate trade purposes, highlighting a need to expand the range of goods exported to China. To help Korea's export companies respond to the changing landscape, Korea's Trade Ministry is planning to step in. They plan to promote more marketing and export exhibitions through related organizations like the Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency. Kim Byungji, Arirang News.
The intergroup transactions within Korea's top 10 conglomerates hit a record high last year. This despite President Park Geun-hye's push for economic democratization. Now, according to data released by Wearable.com on this Tuesday, the combined intergroup trading among affiliates came to $150 billion in 2013, up nearly 2% from the previous year. While trading among affiliates surged among conglomerates like LG, SK, Lotte, and POSCO, it declined among Samsung, Hyundai Motor, and GS.
When the latest news meets the latest business stories, we give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Business Today with Moon Gon-young. Every weekday, only on Arirang.
Now onto some huge tech news. Apple has unveiled a new mobile operating system for its iPhone and iPad, calling it the company's biggest release since the launch of its App Store. iOS 8 was showcased at the Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference in San Francisco on Monday, and some of its features include the ability to control iPhones from other Apple devices and Health Kit. Now, this is a function in which data on a user's health conditions are recorded. Apple says the iOS 8 will be available sometime this fall, along with a new operating system for its Mac computers. And staying with tech news, not so long from now, you may be able to control your computers or smartphones with your hands. Local scientists here in Korea have developed a new technology they believe could change the way we interact with our devices. Here's our Kim Byungji.
By simply clenching your fist, then opening it again, you can control screens of computers or televisions. The selected screen moves when you clench your fist and move it up and down. When clenched, the watch is on. When released, it is off. This is what's known as wearable gesture technology, which works off the movement of wrist muscles. Researchers say the technology is more advanced than the current wearable devices on the market, and it allows users to answer phone calls and control volume with a simple clench of the fist.
Using infrared telecommunications, the technology senses the movement of the wrist muscle and converts the gesture into an order to control the contents.
When the user is wearing the watch, they can control and communicate with nearby smart devices. As the technology recognizes the movement of wrist muscles and does not depend on a camera, it can be used anywhere at any time. By adding authentication functions, researchers believe that users will eventually be able to open the doors to their cars or even their homes.
Because the technology recognizes the movement of the hand, we believe that it is the right technology to adopt in smart bands or in other smart devices being developed now.
The wearable tech market is expected to be worth some $500 million by 2018. The research team plans to gain an upper hand in the market by creating technology that can change formation and is easy to attach to or detach from the body. Kim Byungji, Arirang News.
The Obama administration has announced an ambitious plan to significantly reduce carbon emissions in the U.S. plant sector. Supporters of the plan say it will give Washington greater leverage to push countries like China and India to do more to fight climate change. First, here's our Choi Yoo-sun.
But today EPA is proposing a clean power plan that will cut carbon pollution from our power sector by using clean energy sources and cutting energy waste.
The Obama administration's new plan requires America's 1,000 power plants to reduce their carbon dioxide emissions to 30% of 2005 levels by the year 2030. Nearly 2/5 of electricity in the U.S. is generated by coal-fueled plants. Each U.S. state has a number of ways to achieve this. They can increase their power plants' heat rates, rely more on natural gas or other sources for energy, and raise energy efficiency. The Environmental Protection Agency says more than $90 billion of climate and health-related costs will be saved from the plan, and up to 150,000 asthma attacks in children and over 3,000 heart attacks could be prevented.
Often these illnesses are aggravated by air pollution. Pollution from the same sources that release carbon and contribute to climate change. We've got to do more to reduce it.
Despite the government's assurances that the new rules will bring down electricity bills by 8% and encourage investment in new technologies, business groups and lawmakers from coal-reliant states oppose the initiative.
The administration has set out to kill coal and its 800,000 jobs. If it succeeds in death by regulation, we'll all be paying a lot more money for electricity.
After a period of public comment, the regulations will be finalized in June of next year, after which states can submit their own carbon reduction plans. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
So, taking a historic step to fight climate change, the Obama administration proposed a plan that aims to slash carbon dioxide emissions from existing power plants by 30% by 2030 and accelerate the nation's shift away from coal. Now, it came in the form of a controversial 645-page plan. Our regular contributor, Dr. Kim Byungji, joins me live to take a closer look into this plan. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Kim.
Good afternoon. Don't ask me to have read 645 pages today.
All right. Okay. I hope you skimmed through it, however, or you have the key points.
Right, indeed.
So what are some of the observations on some of those key points?
The observation or reaction really depends on where you stand. For those people who greatly care about this issue here, the pro-environmentalists and those people who are greatly concerned about the overall the issue of climate change overall, they might say, well, just only for power plants? What about the cars? What about other businesses and whole other economic activities? They're not covered, one can say. But the thing is, from the pro-Obama camp's perspective, this is quite considerable because we're talking about over 1,000 power plants, among which about half of them are coal, burning power plants. So indeed, from the pro-Obama camp's perspective, this is a very considerable step indeed. And of course, as I said, those people who care greatly about the climate change issue as a whole, they're saying we need perhaps more. For that much, that's the reaction overall. But what we are seeing here is the overall U.S. Political dynamics. Considerable opposition indeed is being expected from the states who that have a great stake in coal-related industries such as West Virginia and Kentucky, for instance. Obama and the Democratic Party itself will perhaps suffer down the road in terms of their political consequence, losing votes and so on. So what I'm saying here is quite a bold and courageous move by the president himself.
Right. So, and Obama even bypassed Congress to avoid a Republican opposition.
Right.
That's,
right.
I think that shows commitment there. So, will China now recognize the U.S. commitment and perhaps, make a move?
That is the biggest question that everybody who is involved in this issue are having in their minds at this point, for sure. And Obama's action this time and his government's announcement this time clearly has China in mind, and even specifying the coal-burning power industry may have real clear indication that they actually do have China in mind, because China is the country that's burning the largest amount of coal in the world. Indeed, this overall interaction between China and United States has been the key problem or central sticking point for the global cooperation for climate change as a whole, because China is the one that emits about 30% of greenhouse gas, as opposed to United States emitting about 15%. So if you combine them, almost half of the world's greenhouse gas are being emitted by the two countries, China and the United States. So the United States is now taking its first step, telling China, look, this has been overall chicken-egg dispute here, and we've been running into almost like a chicken game here. Now we're taking our first move, so show us your next move. So indeed, this seems to make a lot of sense for the United States, president, to take this kind of action. But if this had been a Republican president such as George W. Bush, very difficult one to expect. So for the whole world, this is a very important and last chance to see this kind of action being taken by the United States, and China's action is very much looking forward to it at this point.
Right, very important, and keep, as China is, of course, no stranger to pollution itself. Now, 2 days ago, Korea's business groups, in fact, issued a stance opposing the Korean government's plan to cut gas emissions or carbon dioxide emissions in this country. What do we see in terms of the timing of this announcement?
This is a major development here, and an interesting coincidence. Just a few days, 2 days before the U.S. announcement of their the reduction plan here, Korea's business community came out big time against not just the grand plan of cutting down the emission itself, but particularly about the ETS, emissions trading system, because this system is being introduced right at this point with a schedule to be fully implemented starting from the first day of next year. Now business community is kind of rising up, kind of like showing their opposition to the overall plan. They are saying overall we need to think about emissions trading system, introduction of it, and or at least if not, if we cannot change the schedule, we should introduce considerable modification for the original plan. Right at this point, the Environment Ministry is driving this plan, and the business community, according to their announcement 2 days ago, they're saying, well, we have to rethink about key things here. For instance, the baseline. It's called the BAU, business as usual. But how do we measure the BAU plan based on which Korea's plan for reducing emissions by 30% by year 2020. If we adjust the BAU more flexibly, it will give us more room, the business community is saying at this point. And they're saying overall cap and trade, the overall amount that needs to be capped, that needs to be a little bit adjusted further.
Flexible as well.
Right. And which industry gets how much of the right, that needs to be also adjusted more flexibly. They're saying, all these changes need to be made.
So what do we see ahead in terms of the Environment Ministry's emission control plan?
This is a tough fight ahead in terms of for those Koreans who care about this kind of issue big time and wanted to see real change coming in here because of the business opposition here. As I said, Yeah, in order to decide in terms of the baseline called the BAU, business as usual, how do you draw the baseline itself will be a big dispute here. But that needs to be done, I think, in my understanding, within the time period of like either this month or that next month. So this will be a hot debate that needs to be continuing between government on one hand and business community on the other. And the pro-environment group will be supporting on the side here. And overall, the amount that needs to be kept and needs to be traded through the ETS system, that also needs to be worked out within this month, I think. So this is a lot of work that needs to be done. And looks like government officials as well as business community representatives will need to stay up several nights.
Right. Very complicated issue, but then, when you really cut down to it, it's a very basic problem.
Right.
Are we going to be breathing in fresh air or not? Are we going to all die out or not? So it's really a human health issue.
But when it comes to business itself, when it becomes a money issues, very difficult.
Right, very difficult when money is involved.
Right.
Dr. Kim Byungji, thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
That is your business today on this Tuesday. Thank you for watching. Do join us again at 6 p.m. Korea time on Early Edition at 6.